There are words that carry loads, centuries of weight, fear, and condemnation. Lucifer, she is one of them. Its mere mention conjures up images of fire, heavenly betrayal, and an eternal fall from grace. But what if I told you that Lucifer isn't in fact reality, a name only? What if everything you thought you knew about him starts with a confusion linguistics? The word Lucifer comes from of the Latin lux, light, and ferre, to carry, to bear. Literally, it means light bearer. In ancient times, this term did not have non-demonic connotation. In fact, it was used to refer to the planet Venus when appeared in a sky before the sunrise, a symbol of beauty, enlightenment, and hope. In the ancient translations of the Bible into Latin, especially in the Vulgate of St. Jerome, the term Lucifer was used simply to describe that star bright of dawn. Nothing more. It was a poetic image, not a malignant entity. But something happened. A storm of theological misunderstandings, hasty translations, and allegorical readings began to distort its meaning. What was an astronomical metaphor became, with a passage of the centuries, in the name of the fallen angel par excellence. Imagine this. You take a word that represents light, guidance, and beauty, and you transform it into a synonym for darkness, corruption, and absolute evil. It's as if the history would have been written backwards, on purpose. In the original Hebrew version of the book of Isaiah, where this figure first appears, does not mention any Lucifer. What is actually found there is Hillel wel Shachar, which can translate as the resplendent son of the dawn, a phrase laden with poetry, metaphorically addressed to the king of Babylon, a symbol of arrogance and fall. But the Latin translation did not capture that subtlety, and the error, or perhaps the intention, was marked forever. This is just the first crack in the wall of myth. Just because Lucifer is not a name, but a symbolic title, who or what does it really represent? Brace yourself, because what comes next will challenge your deepest certainties even further. When we think about Lucifer, automatically we associate with Satan, with the devil. But that connection is not as clear as we have been told, made believe. In fact, if you open the Old Testament and look for the word Lucifer, you will not find it, and you will not find any devil as a unique and evil figure who reigns over the hell, that it's just not there. In the ancient tradition, Hebrew did not exist a being called Satan as we understand him today. What does appear is Satan, who in Hebrew means the adversary or the accuser. And here comes the twist. That adversary was not an enemy of God. He was part of his heavenly court. In the book of Job, for example, Satan appears conversing with God, questioning the Job's faith, but always with divine permission. He doesn't act like a rebel. He doesn't hide in the shadows. It does not conspire against the Creator. Rather, he behaves like a prosecutor, someone who tests the integrity of the men in name of the darling. That totally breaks with the image of the fallen Satan who dominates popular culture, and Lucifer, no trace of him as a demonic character. His name, as we have already seen, arises from an allegorical interpretation, not from a clear text that says, "This is the angel who fell for rebelling." So where from this narrative came out so strong that unites Lucifer, Satan, and the devil in the same infernal figure. This is where it begins the true symbolic manipulation. As Judaism evolved and Christianity emerged, it was felt the need to personify evil, to give it shape, face, and purpose. And so, scattered fragments, an accuser here, a fallen angel there, a snake in Eden, were merged into a single entity. A convenient fusion, fueled by centuries of fear, institutional power, and spiritual control. And you grew up with that image recorded in your mind. But now you already know that in the Old Testament, Lucifer does not appear as the devil, not even as an enemy. It is just a shadow projected by the human interpretation. a shadow that is about to become even more intriguing. Sometimes, an entire civilization can be guided by an error due to a single misinterpreted word. And that is exactly what happened with Lucifer. Let's go back to the 4th century. Saint Jerome, one of the fathers of the Church, was commissioned to translate the scriptures into Latin. His work, known as the Vulgate, became in the official version of the Bible for centuries, and in his translation of the book of Isaiah committed, intentionally or not, a slip that would change the spiritual history of the humanity. In Isaiah 14:12, the original text in Hebrew says, Hellel wel Shachar, which means the brilliant son of the dawn. This phrase, as we saw earlier, was a poetic metaphor to describe the fall of the king of Babylon, a proud man who believed himself invincible. But Jerome translated that phrase like, Quomodo sesidisti of Caelo, Lucifer, fili aurorae. That is to say, how did you fall from the heaven, Lucifer, son of the dawn? Lucifer, just like that. That word did not have then a hellish connotation. It was a common way of referring to the morning star of dawn, the planet Venus. But when placing it there, in a passage full of images of fall, pride, and punishment, began to be sown the confusion. Later readers did not know Hebrew. They read Lucifer and assumed that it was a being, an angel. With he over time, that figure was taking shape. First in the medieval theology, then in the sermons, later in art, and finally in the collective unconscious. A simple error, or perhaps a strategic move, turned a symbol of light in his supreme icon of the darkness. Think about it for a moment. What other truths will have been distorted by translations? So, the story of Lucifer as a rebel angel was cemented not by divine revelation, but by human interpretation, by a bridge poorly constructed linguistic between the Hebrew and the Latin, which ended holding centuries of dogmas. And now that you know, you can't reveal it. Just because Lucifer did not fall of the sky like a demon, but as a badly translated symbol, what else is left for us to discover? The next revelation takes us directly to the heart of the empires, already men who believed themselves gods. Imagine for a moment that the great enemy of God, the one who supposedly rebelled in his sky and fell forever, it was not an angel, but a man, a king of flesh and blood. That is the key hidden behind the passage from Isaiah 14, where the term appears for the first time, centuries after I would be translated as Lucifer. That chapter does not speak of a celestial being. It speaks of the king of Babylon, one of the most feared and arrogant tyrants of his time. He was a figure who, according to the texts, it was believed invincible, almost divine. Someone who compared himself with the stars, who aspired to the throne of the Most High. His pride was so great that the prophets, they saw it as a threat direct to the order of God. So what did the prophet Isaiah? He used the poetry. He used powerful metaphors to describe his fall. How you have fallen from the sky, star of the tomorrow, son of the dawn. No, because he, king, was literally a fallen angel, but because his arrogance, it had risen so high that it seemed heavenly, until it fell with a bang. This was common in prophetic literature, using exalted language to speak of divine punishment upon rulers proud. It wasn't angelological theology, it was political criticism wrapped up in spiritual symbolism. But with he past of the time, that original intention is gone losing. The generations following, they forgot that Isaiah spoke of a real king. The metaphor was taken literally, the symbol became in character, and the character in cosmic villain. Paradoxically, what was a warning against human pride was transformed in the story of an angel who dared to defy God. And who benefited from that change? The new kingdoms, the new empires, those who wanted to divert the attention from the abuse of human power and center it in an external, spiritual, intangible evil. Thus, the true message of Isaiah, a denunciation of the tyranny, was diluted by the fear of the devil, but now the veil begins to tear. The figure of Lucifer was not born in his sky. He was born in the land, in the palaces, in the golden thrones of men who believed themselves immortals. And so more disturbing is that history it is still repeated. Long before the word Lucifer, out associated with evil, already was shining, literally. In the Roman world, Lucifer was a name common, but not from a person, but from a natural phenomenon. That's what they called the planet Venus when appeared in a sky before the dawn, the star of the tomorrow, the light bearer, the first in announcing the arrival of the sun. It was a positive symbol, poetic, inspiring. Ovid mentions it in his works with beauty. Seneca speaks of its clear light. Even Cicero cites it as a sign of wisdom and guidance. No one it I was afraid. On the contrary, it was an omen of life. But early Christianity, as it spread throughout the Roman Empire, found in this name a powerful tool. They could not eliminate all pagan symbols. Then, some they redefined, and Lucifer was one of them. The irony is that in his same New Testament, the title of Star of the Tomorrow applies to Christ. Yes, in the book of Revelation 22:16, Jesus says, "I am the root and the lineage of David, the star resplendent of the tomorrow." Exactly his same symbol, the same star. How is it possible that the same title has been used for both Christ and Lucifer? The answer is in the way in which the church was shaping their symbols. What in one moment was considered light, he could be demonized if he came from the wrong context. If it was linked to the tradition pagan, she became suspicious. Thus, the Roman light bearer, formerly a guide of wisdom and proclamation of the dawn, was turned into the fallen, the false illuminator, the great adversary. A figure that once announced day, now she was condemned to reign in the evening. But what if that light never changed its nature? What if what changed was our interpretation, guided by centuries of fear, control, and religious propaganda? Lucifer, in his origin, was not synonymous with temptation, sin, or destruction. It was a symbol of enlightenment, of transition between the darkness and light. And maybe that was what most bothered those who they wanted to monopolize the true. Because a light bearer who does not come of dogma can be seen as a threat, and that threat in the next chapter will become the elderly villain of the imaginary Christian. How did it become a poetic title in the identity of the elderly spiritual villain of the humanity? The answer lies in a slow, subtle, and deeply strategic fusion. During the first ages in Christianity, there was no consolidated theology of evil. There were scattered figures: the adversary, Satan, the snake of the Eden, the demons expelled, and of course, the mysterious Lucifer of Isaiah. With time, all those figures began to merge in one. It was like building a monster with borrowed pieces. The snake of Genesis, which never was called Satan, became the devil in the popular imagination. Satan, the heavenly accuser of the book of Job, became a rebel angel. And Lucifer, the symbol of the fallen king and of the morning star, was transformed into name own of the angel who dared to defy God. The result was a hybrid creature, an absolute antagonist, the enemy perfect. And why? This occurred because Christianity, as it expanded, needed a clear narrative, a supreme good, God and his Son, and an absolute evil, the devil. He could not, there were no gray areas. I couldn't have ambiguity. The spiritual struggle had to be understood by everyone, from theologians to illiterate peasants. And so, all the shadows were absorbed by a single face, that of Lucifer, Satan, the devil. But this unification, it was not given night at tomorrow. It was built by sermons, councils, legends, medieval and collective fears. Apocalyptic literature and the artistic representations reinforced that image. And with time, it became unquestionable. No one dared to ask, are we talking about the same entity? Aren't they these characters from different contexts with different roles? Why do it? meant challenging centuries of religious teaching, but you know it. You know that Lucifer, Satan, and the devil are not its same, that their stories were sewn with threads of interpretation, fear, and power. And when you think that fusion has a purpose, an enemy common unites, gives direction to fear, justifies norms, controls behavior, because when evil has name, face, and story, too has utility. In the next chapter, we will open the texts that were left out of the official Bible. There, the figure of Lucifer takes on an even more surprising and even noble form. Out of the official biblical canon, in the margins of the dogma, exist books that were suppressed, silenced, or simply forgotten. Ancient texts that did not pass the filter of the councils, but which preserve powerful fragments of an alternative truth. And in those texts, Lucifer is not who they told you he was. One of the most striking is the Book of Enoch, an apocryphal work that was highly valued by the early Christian communities, but then excluded of the canon. He does not appear as Lucifer by name, but the story is narrated story of some angels who descended to earth. They were called the Watchmen. These angels, led by figures such as Semyaza and Azazel, disobey God, but not because rebellion nonsense. They do it for the love of humanity. They teach the men knowledge forbidden, astronomy, metallurgy, writing, wisdom that the heaven didn't want to give up yet. Does this sound familiar? A being of light who brings his divine knowledge to the men and is punished for it. The story resonates with the myth of Prometheus, the Titan Greek who stole his sacred fire of the gods and handed over to the humanity, challenging Olympus. It was chained by his crime, but remembered as a hero. Many occultists, esotericists, and Gnostic thinkers saw in Lucifer a similar figure, not as the prince of the darkness, but as the bearer of the divine spark, a symbol of enlightenment, of questioning, of spiritual freedom. In Gnosticism, for example, true enemy is not Lucifer, but the demiurge, a false god who keeps the human soul prisoner. In that vision, Lucifer represents the rebellion against the ignorance imposed. And here the history takes a radical turn. What orthodoxy condemned as a fall, wise men ancient they saw it as a voluntary descent, a mission, a surrender. Because sometimes illuminating the world requires going through the darkness. These apocryphal texts show us that the figure of Lucifer is much more complex, ambiguous, and human than dogma has allowed us to believe, and if the guardians of the true. They chose to hide these stories. Perhaps they feared what a free mind could discover. But one last revelation is still missing. Lucifer's deepest function is not in the punishment, nor in the rebellion. It is in the spiritual transformation. And if all of the above were just the prelude to a truth even deeper, that what would happen if, instead of being the enemy of the humanity, Lucifer out your catalyst, not a punishment but an opportunity, not a threat but a door toward the awakening. In many esoteric and philosophical currents, from the theosophy to modern occultism, Lucifer represents an initiating principle, the one that ignites the spark of the knowledge, the one who breaks the chains of spiritual conformism. He who with its fall forces us to look within. According to these teachings, Lucifer did not fall out of hatred, he fell by choice, to fulfill an essential role, to oppose, challenge, tempt. Yes, but not to destroy, but to strengthen. Think of it as a test, like the fire that purifies gold, like the desert that precedes the vision. In this approach, evil is not an end. It is a medium, a mirror. Lucifer, as an archetype, represents the rebellion necessary for the spiritual evolution, not the selfish rebellion, but the of the soul that dares to break with the ignorance imposed, that questions, that seeks. In this sense, he is not the prince of darkness. It is the shadow that reveals the light that there is in you. What if your true function out, guide us through the darkness so that we can choose by will own, return to the divine source? This idea is not so strange as it seems. Even in the biblical stories, the more transformative moments are coming after the crisis. The Exodus after the slavery, Faith Job's proven Jesus, desert before the ministry. In each case, the darkness precedes darkness, revelation. Lucifer, then, would be part of a divine process of awakening, not as an absolute antagonist, but as part of the balance, a key piece in the cosmic drama that drives us towards the awareness. But of course, this is a vision dangerous, because it takes power away from fear, and it gives back power to the individual. You are no longer a victim of evil. You are a walker between lights and shadows, called to awaken, and that, for many control systems, is unacceptable. But you came this far. You crossed the veils. And now you are ready to look at Lucifer not as a monster, but as a symbol. In the next chapter, we will close this crossing with the reflection that can change your way of seeing the good, evil, and yourself. Has reached the end of a path full of shadows and light. Throughout this journey, we unearthed 8 truths that lay hidden beneath centuries of dogma, fear, and interpretation. Interested? 8 fragments of a history that is not taught in the churches, but that beats in the margins of the knowledge. Let's recap. 1. Lucifer is not a name, is a title, a symbol of light, not condemnation. 2. It is not the devil of the Old Testament. He was never presented as an enemy of God. 3. The myth was born from a bad translation, a simple mistake with eternal consequences. 4. His figure represented earthly kings, arrogant men, not fallen angels. 5. Lucifer was the Roman star, a revered star, not feared. 6. He is merged with Satan and the devil, creating an enemy perfect but artificial. 7. The apocryphal texts show other side, a bearer of wisdom, a spiritual Prometheus. 8. His spiritual function is initiatory. It represents the challenge that awakens, not evil that destroys. And now the choice is yours. You can close the book again, turn off the screen and let these truths dissolve in forgetting. Or you can allow this spark, the one that was ignited while you heard, keep burning, because maybe the true hell may not be a place, but a place to live without question. And perhaps the true bearer of light is one who makes you think. I invite you to leave your opinion in the comments. Which of these revelations impacted you the most? Do you dare to look at Lucifer from another perspective, angle, or would you rather continue with the official version? If this video shook you, surprised you, or just made you hesitate for a second, like it, share it with someone who needs hear this, and subscribe to the channel. We're not here to impose answers. We come to open doors. Because the mystery deeper is not in the heavens, it's inside you, and we've only just begun.